Our next part is, our next topic is going to be a pretty big chunk. This is where it gets kind of a little bit more hectic with using what we have learned through recent videos and putting all that into practice in our next concept, our topic, which is called polynomials. Now, I need to do this in parts. So this is part one. And the reason I want to do this in parts is because this is just a lot of information. And I don't want to put all this into one long video because I don't want it to get boring. And I don't want to do a lot of sensory overload. Sensory overload means that there's just so much to process at one time. And I don't want to do that to you. So this part one is what we call polynomials. Poly means what? Poly means many terms. So as you write this down, when you hear poly, there's many terms. This thing can go on and on and on and on. And we're going to stick to a little easy for now. So a polynomial in X is a finite sum of terms of the form ax squared, where a is a real number and n is a whole number. Now n actually is there. Sorry. N is actually there. So n can be any number, but it can't not be negative. So little side note here, n has to be greater than or equal to 1. It has to be greater than or equal to 1 for this to work. It can't be negative. If it was negative, if n was a negative number, it's no longer a polynomial. It's no longer a polynomial. Okay? So n has to be greater than or equal to 1. So it can be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, yada, yada, yada. Okay? If you don't know what finite is, finite means it ends. Finite means it ends. So there is different types of polynomials. Poly, remember, is many terms. But monomial, mon, is one term. Binomial, bicycle, bilateral means two terms. Okay. Tricycle is 3. After that, I wouldn't call those anymore. They would just be polynomials. So after trinomials, call it polynomial. Okay. So I have mentioned these. What are terms? What are terms? I have mentioned 1 term, 2 term, and 3 terms. What's a term? Well, a term is technically something like this. It is divided between an operation. So it is divided by an operation or subtraction. So right now, this example up here is a 2 terms. So a term is just something like 3ab, negative 4ac. Those are just terms. A coefficient is the number in front. Is a number that's in front of the term. So for example, the one I gave you, what's the coefficient up here? What's the number? 3. What's the number on this term? 4. Well, what's the number on this guy? X to the 5th power. What number is right there? 1. What's the coefficient here? 3x squared. negative 4x. But what power does this one have? What power is this one? Well, there's a 1, remember? But we don't write 1. It's redundant. So take that out. So what's the coefficient here? 3. What about just a number? A number of some sort. So 3. 3. So it's the number that's in front of all the coefficient, of all the in terms. So, a degree. Well, do you see that these right here? Those are what we call degrees. It's the power. It's the power of those. So, what's the power of ax to the 3rd? The degree is 3. Ax squared, 2. Ax, 1. What about this guy? This is technically what we are getting into. This is a polynomial or a trinomial of degree 3. Well, what about this one over here? We're only looking for the highest degree, the largest degree, the most, the biggest, highest, biggest. Make it simple. So that's what we call degrees of our polynomial. We got the terms, the coefficients are just the numbers in front, and mon, bi, and tri. On the next video, this is where it gets to the problems at hand of identifying polynomials with their degree and also an operation. Maybe we're trying to add or subtract different polynomials. So I see you on the next video, part 2.